Hello and welcome to Landy's Crypto Corner. Today is February 19th, 2025, and we're looking at Bitcoin as always. And we're starting off today by looking at Bitcoin on the 5 days. We did just get a 5-day closure. We saw a little bit more compression in the Bollinger Band set here. We see very low volatility in the volatility metrics here that we're using, where volatility is measured both inside and outside of the bands here with the BBWP by Caretaker. He was nice enough to allow me to pilfer his code for my indicator, which you can find in the link in the video description down below or on my X Profiles bit.ly link there. It is free. That was part of the stipulations for having use of some of Caretaker's code here. Now, why am I starting off with the 5-day? Well, as I mentioned in the Macro Monday video, Bitcoin, had the big expansion up and has been consolidating sideways here. And after a big expansion, we go into a compression, and then we're looking for criteria to be met for volatility expansion to the upside, either above the upper second standard deviation that also sees closures above the highs, so breakout on expansion, or below the lower second with a breakdown below the lows of the range here for full-on expansion to the downside. Now, it doesn't always mean that we're going to hit full expansion. Usually it's close over close below the lower second while also breaking an area of support or the last area of support, or above resistance and the last area of resistance with continued closures or close over close above the upper second standard deviation. So Bitcoin is priming for a larger move relative to the 5-day time frame. If you were to ask me to estimate, I can't give you an estimate in terms of timing, but generally speaking, when price is this compressed, I'd be looking for larger moves to start beginning within the next 10 to 15 days out from here. Maybe sooner, maybe on the lower end at even 5 days, we start to see the etchings of expansion, but we would still need to see the close over close, right? Either below the lower second or above the upper second, and then gauge whether or not we're getting those closures outside of the highs here or outside of the lows here for the actual expansive move to continuation, right? So maybe we see that in this current 5-day session. Otherwise, I am looking 10 to 15 days for the picture to start be painted. Now, could that go longer? Absolutely. And I do want to reference the weekly really quick here because the weekly is, as it relates to the 5-day, is currently in, going from expansion into its compression. Yes, it's very low volatility and it's saying probably 1 to 2 weeks. So that would put us right around the 15-day mark for the 5-day. We might see the full compression of bands here for the weekly. Or if we start to see the 5-day start to get expansion to the upside, we have to be aware of where the upper first is here at 103,350 and the upper second here at, right over 115,000 coming in at $116,000. And to the downside, lower first there at 77 and the lower second there at 65. I do think that the low side, lower second is a little bit further away, and we would have time to likely see the 5 days start to show its hand in terms of price action. And then we look for this to probably update week over week in this compression as the lower second will likely move up, and the upper second will likely move down as this continues in its compression, unless we were to see Bitcoin go up and take out the upper second or below the lower second. I do think the lower second and even the lower first is a lower likelihood right now, but there are specific conditions that we can be watching. Breakdowns below the basis band on the weekly at 90,600 that also start closing below 89. We're likely going in for that, lower, mid to lower $80,000 region, upper $70,000 region by this lower first standard deviation, then possibly a retest of this prior accumulation range highs. I'm not seeing the signs for that right now showing themselves at this particular moment, but it is something to be aware of for that downside. And to the upside, though, we'll see on any closes back above $100,000 for the 5-day here. If we were to start to look at the 5-day, essentially the upper first, that $100,000 to $101,000 would put Bitcoin above the upper first for the 5-day and starting to target that upper second around the closing highs here at $105,000. And what would that look like on the weekly? Well, that would put Bitcoin, starting to play in and around its upper first on the weekly. If it did start to get expansion on the 5-day from there, we're looking to the highs, the current all-time high and the high side region here to that upper second, possibly, heading up towards that $115,000 to $116,000 area. And we're not seeing signs, at least at this particular moment, for resolution as it stands here on Wednesday. We'll see where things are on Friday. But let's go ahead and take a look at the daily and kind of put things into perspective. Bitcoin's still on a downtrend, still lower highs and lower lows in this current trend. And we're looking for Bitcoin to at least set a low on a close. Right now we have, the big swing low down here. We had a little bit of a swing higher low to swing lower high here, and then we got a lower low. So realistically, this is still a downtrend. If we see a low set, that's good. We're probably looking for Bitcoin to at least wick up. But what would be the criteria for breaking the downtrend? It's pretty simple. Let's go ahead and turn on our local support and resistance areas here. And you can see that I have where we would see a daily low being set. And a nice reminder that, we ran the weekly close open higher low structure, not the actual low at 89, but, we just ran on Tuesday the actual weekly close open there at 93.5. If Bitcoin does close above the 90, what is this going to be? This is going to be $97,000 and 97,000 essentially. I would even push that to the basis band here, coming in at 97,200. We start seeing closes there, we will get a closing low set. And, then I would start to target breaking the downtrend here at around $99,000, this swing high here on the chart. So we'll zoom in a little bit so it's easier to see. And anywhere above there, that would also put Bitcoin above the upper first standard deviation. So in lower term timeframes, I would be looking to kind of right where Bitcoin's playing around now, just below the daily basis band, which is a 20 simple moving average. If it does start to close above there, then we can start targeting that last lower swing high here to break the downtrend by the upper first, and be aware in lower term timeframes of rejections in that area. And then above there, I'd be looking to $100,000 by the upper second to the bottom side of this pretty strong overhead resistance now at 101 and slightly above to that 101,500 by the upper third. If Bitcoin starts to close anywhere in here, it is a zone between 101 and 104 by this major Fibonacci extension level at 103,650 or so. This, of course, is a fib extension from the prior cycle high to the bear market low, so $69,000 to $15,500. This would be 27.2% above there, coming in at that 103,650 or so, almost $104,000 now. So I would look at that as a big area of interest overhead. And if Bitcoin can clear that, of course, we would see obviously expansion on and closes above $100,000 into this overhead resistance. And if it can clear it, it's already in an expansive posture, right? So then we'd be looking for further expansion up between 104 and 106, and then 106 to 108, and then eventually the all-time high and higher, likely marching its way up to around that 115 as kind of a main area of interest, as mentioned on the weekly. To the downside, if Bitcoin does drop the lower first standard deviation, where we have right around $95,000 to $96,000, then I would be looking down to the lower second. That's coming in at 94.3. Anywhere below there, we're looking for Bitcoin to, if it hasn't already, hit the weekly again here at 93.5 and started to go for that lower $93,000 area. I would look for that to continue down into that area and possibly this red box down here between 92 and essentially $89,000 down there by the 1.168 or 16.8, not 618, 168 fib level, where we have this higher low swing in this uptrend coming in. So it just happened to be like a perfect area. Excuse the kids in the background. Sorry about that. But it's pretty simple. Let's look at a few other things here. So we've got our support and resistance. We've got our it's still a downtrend. We've talked about some of the support and resistance areas of interest here, and then it's really about momentum. After talking about the volatility, which we've kind of been honing in on since the very beginning of this video, and momentum is going to be, it's looking for confluence. So there's trend, support, and resistance. Volatility create momentum, but you're looking for the confluence across all of them to kind of form your thesis, right? So we have our conditions that we need to see met for setting a low, taking out the lower high, and then also conditions for breaking down to further levels, right? So what we're looking for in terms of closures, lower term time frame relative to the daily. But what about the daily momentum in general? Well, the daily momentum is kind of chopping around here, right around the bearish control zone of momentum. Now, this is a regular Stochh, not a Stochh RSI for those that are new to my analysis. We'll look at RSI in just a moment. I don't look at Stochh RSI because if we're going to use RSI anyway, there's no need to. I'd rather look at the confluence relative to the price chart, and that's what a regular Stochh does. It is close over close price momentum. So in this case, where is the pivot? This is a fancy indicator. You don't need this one. This is another one by the crew over there of developers that the Crown's Crypto Cave uses. I'm a big fan of them. This is a regular Stochh. It has extra bells and whistles. It's a paid indicator. You don't need to get a paid indicator. This has other stuff that I use like DMI and ADX. You don't need that for the pivot stuff and the style of analysis that I do here. You can get a free indicator. There's plenty of free ones. This free one is like the most easy one to find. It's the BA Pig reverse Stochh panel. It's on the indicators section. And we've got 96,650 as the close to turn momentum back to the upside, at least initially. Well, 96,660 would put Bitcoin above the area or the criteria, I believe. No, it actually would still be below. So 96,660 is like if it closes here or higher, basically it will shift momentum, but we still need to see that low set. So that's where we have to take into account our conditions. We need to see the low set. We need to see the pivot. We need to see the momentum shift, right? And obviously it's lagging and picking up this low on a close, though we need to see it actually close the low and not just have a swing low in and then go to swing high and then come back down. So just understand the criteria there. Even if it closes above 96.60 but doesn't close above 97, then it hasn't set a low. That's not a signal that is confluent with what we want to see for further potential moves to try and take out this lower high here at $99,000. So, but if we do see it met, we need to see 99K taken out, start heading to that 100 to 101, and then it's in that zone between 101 and 104 as an area of interest. So not too much to talk about in that regard. I will follow up with some more interesting things that I've been looking at this Friday. Of course, we'll talk about what to look for over the weekend in terms of weekly criteria to watch. And then, of course, we'll then talk again that next Monday. But let's get through the rest of this Wednesday for me. Thursday candles open. I'd watch price in and around these areas and see what happens in terms of meeting our criteria to the upside or downside, and plan accordingly as we come in towards the end of the week on Friday, and I'll talk to you again then. You have a wonderful morning, afternoon, and evening, no matter where you are in the world. Please trade safe, and of course, as always, stay safe. With all of that being said, Landy out. Take care.